All right, gather round, gather round, gather round. It's story time. I'm going to tell you about the time, just a couple months actually, where I tried to buy a large piece of land on a nice little remote lake here in Alaska. And I'm going to tell you this story just a bit of as a cautionary tale and a bit of me just kind of sharing some insights as to what it's like actually buying raw land in Alaska, even if you actually live here and you're already very experienced in real estate just in general. So I'm going to give you some backstory. We had a lake that my older brother and another brother and I really liked going to over the years. And for those who aren't aware, my older brother was murdered about a year ago, back in October of 2023. And it was always a dream of his that we would buy a piece of land on this property and develop it and just kind of be a great place for family to go to kind of build those relationships and really enjoy the time on the lake and the fishing and everything else. I mean, some of my best memories with my older brother is actually right there on that lake in a canoe. And so when my younger brother and I saw that there was about a 7-acre piece of land that just came available on that lake with about 700 feet of lakefront property, that definitely looked really good. So the first thing we did, obviously, called up the listing agent, asked for all the information we could possibly get about it, see all the reports and everything that we could see on the property. It already had an artesian well on the property. Now, what that means is it says that the water table sits higher than where the well is, so they just have to drill down a pipe, and then that water is just going to continue just coming up through this pipe without having to have any additional mechanisms or anything like that. It's like a natural well, almost. So we knew that was already developed. It was like, okay, great. We're one step ahead here. We've got plenty of land there where we could very likely go and develop. And the next thing we wanted to do after getting that information was, okay, we need to get to this remote place and we need to spend some time there and actually put boots on the ground. So myself, my brother, and brother-in-law and his boy went out there, and we did some fishing out there and just everything you could hope for. We were able to camp out there. It's just far enough where you just don't get a whole lot of cell reception, so it was nice and quiet, and could actually decompress a little bit, and that was great. And spent some time out there with the drone and everything, got some great footage of it, so we could kind of see like some trails and everything, maybe that we could get ATVs and other vehicles back in there and make it a little easier to access, because your options are pretty much hike and canoe or fly in. And I don't know about you, I don't have the spare change for flying in all that often. But that's so it was a great trip. And we got back and we ended up making the offer on the property. It turned out somebody else was interested in the property as well. And we ended up, actually beating them out and winning that and got under contract. Now, backing up a little bit, we did decide to purchase it as a family LLC. Now, this is a little bit different than you just buying it by yourself, because when you buy it as an LLC, it's obviously under the name of the LLC. And for us, we wanted something where we could operate it as a family, develop it as a family, and then hand it down to descendants after that. And the big thing is you just want to make sure you have a really well articulate, in-depth operating agreement if you're doing something like that, because you want as many scenarios laid out as you possibly can and not have any surprises along the way. Like that's really the intention of having an operating agreement in an LLC like that, and then have an attorney drafted up and everything to make sure that it does what it is you want it to do. Because if you're talking about generations down the line, okay, we might all get along just fine right now. There's no guarantee that streak is going to continue with the next generation. We might get 2-3 generations in here, and somebody's just a complete piece of work, and it's going to destroy the whole thing if you give them the free rein and just assume they're going to do the right thing. So you need a little operating agreement, something that does a little the legal heavy lifting for you to avoid those scenarios in the future. So that's what we did there. So everything that I'm doing at this point is really in the interest of my family and in the operating agreement and LLC that we're trying to set up. So the next step after that is really to do the due diligence. So one thing that really stood out to me while we were out there, it looks like there are some cabins that from an adjacent property that is right on the stupid boundary of the lot. And this bugs me so much because you've got big 7-10 acre parcels out there, and yet somehow this person still managed to build like 2 cabins like right there on the line, like right there. It's like you had all this land. Like, why? It just bugs me so much when you've got all that land and people still manage to like make it super close. So after going out there the first time, just do the scouting run, and wanted to come back with first off, do a test for the well and make sure like the water and everything is good and is something that's actually going to work for us and it's safe and clean. And the next step was to make sure that there was no encroachment going on with the neighbors, because if there's an encroachment, that's something we would want to have the sellers take care of ahead of time. I'm not really interested in purchasing a property and then finding out the neighbor is a complete piece of work and terrible to work with, and they're going to refuse to absolutely do anything. So we went in there to go ahead and do that, and kind of the mindset was going to be, okay, if there is an encroachment, what we're going to do is we're just going to give them an agreement and just say, hey, this is going to survive whoever the owners are, whether that's us or you, but we're not going to require you to move your cabins. But we do want to acknowledge there is an encroachment. You agree there's an encroachment, and you're not going to reinforce this property later on to extend the life. Like, you're just going to let it collapse, let it naturally deteriorate, and then you're going to respect the boundary and rebuild those somewhere else. So if there was an encroachment, that's what we wanted to do. Now, getting out there, went ahead and just had a plane fly myself out there and a couple of the surveyors. And we went out there and I collected some water samples, sent it back with the gentleman who was flying the plane and everything. Had a friend of mine pick up the water samples that I sent back with the pilot, and he ran it over to the lab so they go ahead and take a look at the water samples. While that's all happening, I'm still back at the property, and we are tromping through like terrain and land that really has not been changed or altered at all since the creation of the world. Like, it is just Devil's Club and just grass as high as you can imagine. We're over there with machetes trying to hack our way through stuff. And there's, supposed to be like four survey posts really at all 4 corners. And we found 2 out of 3. 2 out of 4. So we found 2 out of 4. And we're just walking around. There's obviously some interesting things about the property that we hadn't noticed before, just without tromping around as much. And the big thing we found out is, okay, great, there's no encroachment. That's the big thing. And, it looks close. Again, these knuckleheads built it way too close, but it's something that we can work with. It's like, okay, great. Looked at a couple other sites around the property and went, okay, we can build a yurt here, some kind of a cabin here, some kind of central area right over here. The artesian well, they didn't have like keep in mind what I said before about the artesian well where it's a pipe and then water's coming out of it. They didn't put any kind of cap on the top of it. And so all that water was just coming out and then just seeping onto the property. And no, that's not optimal. Kind of creates a bit of a marshy condition that's not necessary. And so we didn't block it up or anything. So I'm not going to alter anything about the property while I don't own it yet. But that's something took a mental note of. We're going to take care of that. Okay. So we get back, all in all, feeling pretty good, making plans on how we're going to start developing everything out there. The plans were to get materials out there during the wintertime with snow machines and just drop the material off. While we have the lakes and the trails and all that are frozen solid, we can just take the material out there, drop it off, throw tarps around it, come back in the springtime, and get to work then. So that's what we're planning. We're waiting for the final results from the water. The water tests come back, and a lot of the basic results came back just fine. You have the basic water quality test, where that's going to be looking at, I think it's like the bromine, the E. coli, stuff like that, the basics. I spent a little bit extra and just wanted to get an arsenic test as well, just to be on the safe side. It was like an extra 50, 70 bucks or something like that. But it was like, you know what? We're doing this anyway. We might as well get that checked as well. Well, it actually came back positive for arsenic. So if you don't know what arsenic is, I'm not a scientist, so you're going to have to, you're going to have to really look into it, do your own research. But the big thing is that with arsenic, if you're consuming it, the best case scenario you're hoping for is that you're just going to be getting cramps and diarrhea. Like, that's the best case scenario. Worst case is good chance you're going to get like cancer and a lot of other issues with it as well. Maybe not cancer, but either way, good chance you could die. Okay, so it's poison, really is what it comes down to. And this very likely is something the seller just had no idea about, because it's been years since they've been out there. I doubt they ever had it tested. And even if they had, I think what happened is we had the earthquake back in 2018. That really did shake up the ground a lot out there, and that can impact the quality of the water in those specific areas. So we found out there's arsenic. And I mean, that kind of killed the entire dream and the deal there as well. So it's like there's things you can do to treat arsenic, but for us personally, we're just not going to be out there very much. And the cost for putting in like the treatment and the system and all that, and then, you know, the risk of we do all this stuff and it still doesn't work, and this property that was meant to be a blessing to the family potentially becomes a curse because, you know, somebody gets sick because we didn't keep up with the treatment well enough, or we did everything and just the system just didn't work. And, we just decided, hey, this is just not honoring my brother's legacy very well. So we decided not to pursue it any further and just let the deal fall through. So I give you this entire story just to say, there are reasons when we're buying raw, even something as simple as raw land, that we are doing our due diligence and checking on as many things as possible. Obviously, that was more expensive to pay to fly myself and then a couple surveyors and then have the water tests and all that done. I think I ran like $1,000, $2,000 or something like that. And that sounds expensive, but compared to close, I think it was over right around like $60-some thousand. It really pales in comparison to having paid that premium, bought the property, and then find out there's arsenic, and it's going to be very difficult for us to sell later, if that ever did come up. But that's really kind of the takeaway I would have there. I'm sure family will purchase some other property in the future, and it'll be a great blessing, and we'll be able to build a little cabin and everything on there. Maybe I'll have a little video talking about the off-grid lifestyle, because everyone knows that's what you do if you're in the content creating space in Alaska. But that's kind of the story for now. And just say all that again to say there's a reason we do the due diligence. Don't cut corners, and make sure that you cover as many bases as you can, because you just don't know. Because the arsenic was literally the very last thing, and it wasn't even within the range of the normal things that you test for. I just had a feeling and decided to have it tested anyway. But I sure hope this has been useful for you. If you have any questions, concerns, objections about buying property in Alaska, I've got a separate video that's going to be coming out soon if it hasn't already. So do make sure that you check that out. And we'll see you next time.